Well, here we are again with another holiday. It's
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day officially became a holiday in 1914, and I'm dressed like a woman of that time because the idea was originally conceived around 1860. John is dressed like a Victorian gentleman of that time.
That's right. Now, we all know about Mother's Day, right? Well, think again. As we researched this, we found out there's a lot of background, a lot of complicated background, actually even some battles about it. So it was very, very interesting to check it out.
Yeah, originally Mother's Day wasn't conceived to be just a day off for mom or, just an idea just to give her gifts or something like that. The idea of an official holiday to honor mothers was originally introduced by Anne Reeves Jarvis.
Anne Reed Jarvis.
Yeah, and she lived from 1832 to 1905, and she was an Appalachian woman who had 13 children, but
Wow.
only 4 of them lived
Yeah,
to adulthood.
those were those days.
It was a hard life.
Very hard. Yeah. So at age 23, though, she organized mothers' clubs because she wanted to do something to improve the conditions in Appalachia. So she organized these clubs, and she was trying to work for the health and the safety of all the families of Appalachia, and especially for the children growing up in those conditions. But she was also known for promoting peace between the Union and the South armies and families in the midst of the Civil War.
That's right. She believed that women should be recognized for their many contributions to society, not just for their status as life givers, important as that might be. She said, "I hope and pray that someone, sometime, will found a memorial Mother's Day commemorating her for her matchless service she renders to humanity in every field of life." She is entitled to it.
Yes, she envisioned Mother's Day as the beginning of a women's movement to better the lives of other Americans.
And certainly had a point. Many of the world's most famous women were mothers. So it wasn't like you just chose between a career and motherhood, right? They do both. So John is going to name some famous women, and I'm going to tell the number of children that each one of them had.
Marie Curie,
She had 2 children,
Melinda Gates,
4 children,
Margaret Thatcher,
2,
Ada Lovelace,
3,
Cleopatra,
4,
Queen Victoria,
9,
Princess Diana,
2,
Jane Goodall,
1,
Harriet Tubman,
1,
Sojourner Truth,
5,
Eleanor Roosevelt,
6,
Queen Elizabeth,
4,
Maya Angelou,
1,
and Indira Gandhi.
2. So, these women, they did everything you had to do as being a mother, but they weren't just mothers. They did many important other things besides it, including ruling countries. So, unfortunately, Anne Jarvis's idea of a Mother's Day and a women's movement at that time really didn't catch on.
No, it didn't.
But the idea of a Mother's Day somehow stayed alive. And Julia Ward Howe is the next person.
Right.
And to take up the cause of establishing a Mother's Day. Now, she was somewhat of a celebrity. She was a poet, and she wrote that famous song during the Civil War, Battle Hymn of the Republic. We all know that, right?
Right.
So, about 1870, she called for a Mother's Day of Peace, dedicated to the celebration of peace and the eradication of war.
That's right.
Wouldn't we like to see that?
Right. Today, especially.
So, as expressed in what she called her Mother's Day Proclamation from 1870, Howe articulated that mothers should gather to prevent the cruelty of war and the waste of life, since mothers are the giver of life, and they bear and know the cost more than anyone.
More than anyone.
So John is going to read for us that famous 1870 proclamation of Julia Ward Howe, the writer of the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Here it is.
Here it is.
Arise, all women who have hearts, whether your baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come home to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn what we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure others. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes out with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and anvil for the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each learning after his own time the sacred impress, not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period, consistent with its objects to promote the alliance of different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace.
And we certainly can relate to that. But this version of Mother's Day, this sort of day of peace and an end to war, pacifism, it was celebrated in Boston for a number of years, about 30 years, but it never really caught on nationally because pacifism is not that popular.
Right.
War,
Peace.
War, they don't want to give, they want
That's
to
right.
leave options open for war, right?
Right.
And so that didn't really take up. So anyway, back to Anne Reeves Jarvis.
Anne Reeves Jarvis.
The one who originally came up with the idea
Yeah.
that women should be honored not just for being mothers, but for all the things that mothers do, like Mothers Against Drunk Driving, or
Right,
something
that's a
like
big
that.
one.
That's a good example. The next person to take up the cause was her daughter, and this is confusing because her name is almost exactly the same. She's Anna Maria Jarvis.
Anna Maria.
Yeah, so the mother is Anne, and the daughter is Anna. Okay, so that's kind of confusing, but that's the way it is. So after her mother, Anne, died, Anna took it upon herself to revive this idea of having a Mother's Day as a national holiday. However, instead of sticking to her mother's idea that it be to honor all the good works of women above and beyond motherhood, right? She proposed that they have a day just to honor mothers, both living and dead. And she took this cause to everyone. She took it to Congress, and she took it to civic organizations, and she talked to all kinds of different groups trying to promote this idea of having a Mother's Day, really in a sort of a way of honoring her own mother as being the author of this. And this broader vision of Mother's Day really took off. And it quickly gained popularity, and by 1914, it was declared a legal holiday. And the law was dedicated to the best mother in the world, your mother.
Your mother, right. Well, Anna Jarvis suggested that the white carnation should be the official symbol of Mother's Day. She said,
Its whiteness is to symbolize the truth, purity, and broad charity of mother love, its fragrance, her memory, and her prayers. The carnation does not drop its petals, but hugs them to its heart as it dies. And so too, mothers hug their children to their hearts. Their mother love never dying.
all right, yes. Well, the holiday really took off. I mean, it was all over the place. The floral companies picked up on it, the greeting cards companies picked up it, and took advantage of the new holiday. And much to the discomfort of Anna Jarvis, she simply wanted to honor her mother and the work she had done, and claimed that her mother, Ann Jarvis, was the originator of a real Mother's Day.
So she was dismayed to see Mother's Day become a commercial holiday with the sending of cards and gifts, and also used as a way to promote other causes or sales or all kinds of stuff. And Jarvis's ideal observance of Mother's Day was like a home visit or writing a long letter to your mother. And ultimately, and sadly, Anna ended up spending the final years of her life trying to abolish the very holiday that she had helped establish.
Well, beginning about 1920, she urged people to stop buying the flowers, sending the cards. She turned against the commercial interests, and she benefited from the holiday. She referred to these people in really nasty terms.
Yeah, she called them charlatans, bandits, pirates, racketeers, kidnappers, and termites that would undermine with their greed one of the finest, noblest, and truest movements and celebrations.
Well, about Mother's Day cards, she said,
A printed card means nothing except that you are too lazy to write to the woman who has done more for you than anyone in the world. And candy, you take a box to your mother and then you eat most of it yourself.
that's right.
A pretty sentiment.
Yeah. Well, years after the founded of Mother's Day, she was dining in a Philadelphia tea room, and she saw on the menu Mother's Day salad. Well, she bought it, and then she stood up and said, "Well," and threw it on the floor, paid her bill, and stomped out.
She had totally lost control of the holiday she'd helped create. And she was just crushed by this belief that commercialism was destroying Mother's Day, which was supposed to have honored her mother, and it was just being destroyed. So now she started launching all these lawsuits against everybody who used the term Mother's Day
That's
to
right.
sell flowers or to sell cards or anything else. So she was suing all of them. And she ended up like using up all of her personal wealth to do this.
Every last cent.
And by the time she died in 1848, she had disowned the holiday altogether. And she had actually lobbied the government to remove this holiday from the American
Yes,
calendar.
she did. She was really obsessed by all this sort of stuff, and she even resorted to civil disobedience. She was dragged out screaming from one of the gatherings of the American War Mothers by police. She was arrested for disturbing the peace in her attempts to stop the sale of carnations. I mean, she harassed Eleanor Roosevelt. Because she used it for a collection for infant mortality care before. In any case, she ended up just totally a recluse, totally crazed, and actually she had no children.
And she died in a mental health
That's
facility.
right. She died in a mental health.
Yeah, she just totally lost it. So yeah, she won the Battle of Mother's Day, and then she lost the Battle of Mother's
Right.
Day. So it was kind of ironic. And she lost the battle because Mother's Day has prevailed as a day when everyone sends cards and buys flowers
Right.
and goes out to eat and does all those things that she didn't think were appropriate. And but some people, I think most are aware of this by now, but some people may not be aware that Mother's Day remains a controversial holiday.
Mm.
Not because of the commercialism.
No, now it's over with.
No, but it has to do with the churches.
Yeah.
Because some, well, no one objects to celebrating Mother's Day. I
No,
it's
no.
It's a wonderful thing.
Just like any other day, there's always.
It's a wonderful holiday. I mean, it's not a military holiday. It's
No,
not a
that's-
religious holiday. I mean, it's kind of nice. It's just a holiday when you're supposed to just
Yeah.
be nice to your mother, right?
Right. Yeah.
But some churches have just like adopted Mother's Day as the centerpiece of their service for that day. And they pass out flowers and everyone's greeting each other and they ask mothers to stand.
Right, they've done that,
sort of separating them out and delivering sermons on
Right.
what Proverbs,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and
Right.
just extolling the virtues of motherhood.
Right.
And this has become controversial.
Yeah. And actually, in this situation, the sense is that this is a special time of Easter. We're celebrating the resurrection of Jesus, and it takes away from this big celebration the church has. So my experience has been, it's sort of back and forth depending upon the feelings of the congregation and the culture of the congregation. So I've always tried to minimize any intrusion, but I did get flowers or daisies or something for everybody, and just to do something. And I was very happy this morning. The past virtual church we go to, the pastor just gave a perfunctory Happy Mother's Day and said that the roses that they had ordered for some group in town that was selling roses were available. And that was it. He didn't mention Mother's Day in the sermon or anything like that. So that's sort of the goal, because there are all these civic holidays throughout the year, and you'd probably never get to the message of the gospel if you followed all of the Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, all these different holidays, 4th of July, and Scout Sunday. I mean, you've got to. It's been, the whole thing is the culture between the civic holidays, which are fine, celebrate them, but let us have a time to get the gospel out clearly every Sunday.
And while this is a problem for pastors, for the congregants,
Right.
it is a very romanticized holiday,
Yeah.
where motherhood is idealized. And what I came to realize over the years, like sometimes you'd look around on Mother's Day and there'd be all these people crying
Yes, that's right.
because, some of us have become sensitive to the fact that motherhood is a very traumatic subject for some people.
Right.
There are those who are grieving the loss of their mother, grieving the loss of a child, those who have had horrible relationships with mothers who maybe were not the kind that Anna Jarvis was describing. They have bad relationships with their mothers, or they feel they were bad mothers themselves. And then others say the church is insensitive to women who don't want to be mothers.
Right. It's been a very
Because
toss-up experience.
when you go to church, it should be a place, first of all, where they're focusing on spirituality and not separating out groups of people.
Right.
For we're supposed to be have a new identity in Christ.
Right.
So all of the old things or all of the external things fall away.
Right.
And for some people, it's such a painful subject
Yeah.
that most churches have become very sensitive about.
Very sensitive.
And if they do, talk about Mother's Day at length, they go through all this.
They go through all those
And
issues.
they have to go through healing, and they
Which-
say, we pray for you if your mother wasn't there for you
Right.
when you needed her. We pray for you if your mother was an alcoholic and beat you, or
Right.
whatever. Go through all that. We release you from any guilt. and-
Release, yeah.
Yeah, so, it's hard. So
Yeah.
more and more churches are just kind of doing like what the pastor did this morning and saying,
Right.
Happy Mother's Day, everybody,
Right.
and then just kind of letting it
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But fortunately, both of us were blessed to have really wonderful mothers.
Yes, wonderful mothers, mothers that cared, and mothers that contributed to the society in all kinds of ways. My mother was trained to be a Latin teacher. She taught Latin for quite a while, and then she taught fourth grade. She taught a wonderful, a very special group in Sunday school. She was just the anchor of that class, and those young people have done incredible things in loving God and loving the neighbor. And then later, when she was about 45, she trained as a lay practical nurse, who can do just about everything a regular nurse can do. And she went to work in a major hospital, and was working on the floors and had wonderful relations with patients. She was really a caring person. Not only that, she was a leader in the community where I grew up. She was actually became a head of the Eastern Star for her term, and in many ways she just accomplished so much.
And yet she was a wonderful mother
Yes,
and
she
took
was.
wonderful care of you.
Yes, she did.
Took you to the beach every day and
Yeah,
got you involved in all kinds of things
Yeah.
and
it
introduced him.
took me to church,
Yeah, got him going on that.
from the beginning.
And similarly, I had, a wonderful mother who took great care of me, raised me up to be a strong woman always. She wanted me to be a strong woman. And she was a loving woman and taught me a lot of stuff, but she was really something
Yes, she
because she was a full participant in our family's bee business.
Mm.
So she put on her old clothes and get out there and move beehives around,
Right.
swarms of bees all over her head,
Oh my God.
and take off honey and process the honey through the extractors and do all the processing and bottle it up, and then she'd be out there selling it.
Selling it, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw her selling stuff.
Yeah, and she took care of the books and she did everything. So she ran a business.
Right.
And then every year at the holidays, she worked at the turkey farm in Waterman.
All right.
When I was there and I saw her, she would weigh the turkeys and then write, and that was for Christmas money, write the weight on the box.
That's right.
And that was for Christmas money.
Mm-hmm.
And she was also active in the Grange.
That's right.
Rather obscure organization nowadays, but she was active in the Grange, and she was a secretary for a long time. I remember that. And she taught Sunday school, and she always brought me to church, to
Oh.
the Methodist church.
Good
She
thing.
was in the ladies' Sunday school group, and she was also a really active member of the circles. She
Oh,
was
right,
always in a
right,
circle.
right.
And so, we were blessed to have wonderful mothers that in the tradition of what Ann Jarvis, the original one, wanted.
Right.
They were both advocates for peace.
Mm-hmm.
My mother got very upset about injustice, and
Right.
she absolutely was against war, and I'm sure yours was too, right?
Oh, yeah.
So,
I mean-
again, in the tradition of Julia Ward Howe, and then, yet they were also kind, good people, as
Right.
described by Ann
Right.
Jarvis, the third one,
Right.
who promoted Mother's Day.
Yep.
So, I don't want anyone to think that because I'm not a mother, and it always is a little uncomfortable to me, especially when I was, the pastor's wife,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody coming out, Happy Mother's Day, Happy Mother's Day. I'm like, I'm not a mother. After a while, I got used to just saying thank you, even though I wasn't a mother,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't figure it out. I could be as sentimental as the next person. And this is something, I don't know, it was maybe second grade,
Second grade sounds
maybe.
about
I
right.
don't know, I think it's about right.
Yeah.
And it's a booklet that apparently was made for Mother's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't really see it. I'll put some pictures on Facebook.
Yeah,
and
do
you'll be
that
able to
later.
see it. And it says, "My mother." And I wrote a couple of poems. "My mother is so kind and sweet, and she is so neat."
Oh, wow.
My mother was quite neat.
You're such a poet.
Yes, that was good, but here's another one. "My mother is so kind and wise, and oh, she has such pretty eyes."
Even rhymes.
She did have pretty eyes.
Yes, she did.
They were brown, but they had some kind of like gold, gold flecks. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. I think, they were kind of hazel. And then I have a picture of her that looks like
Very good.
George Washington
Oh,
that I made.
George Washington.
Yeah. And then it says she washes clothes. And I have a picture of her hanging clothes out to dry. And I think I did this because I love to do things with her. I cooked with her. We had a wringer washer, and I helped her do laundry, and we would hang the clothes outside, and I would help her and hold the
Those were the
clothespins.
days.
And I love doing stuff like my mother. So, I love my mother very much. A list of things she does for me. She cooks. She makes me clothes. She helps me when I'm sick. She goes to the store and buys food. And she teaches me many things. And then I have another final composition here
Oh, what?
called "I Remember."
I remember.
I remember when I was in the Grange Hall and I fell down and got a lump on my head.
Oh.
And she put an ice pack on my head. And once she gave me a birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
She made me a cake every year.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I had a party every year. And I remember when she taught me how to tell time.
Very
So
important.
there you go. I loved my mother, and I kept this all these years.
All these
And
years.
My mother is dear to my heart. As
Mm-hmm.
yours is dear to your heart, and I'm
Yeah.
sure all of you,
Yeah.
you have your relationship with your mother and your children, and so that's about it.
That's about it.
So, happy
Happy Mother's
Mother's Day!